You lose everything today.
I should have been asleep that night. It was well past midnight, and the house sat in that particular quiet that comes after everyone's settled in for the evening. My wife Emma lay beside me, her breathing slow and even, completely peaceful. I wasn't. My phone vibrated against the nightstand, its screen casting an eerie blue glow across our bedroom ceiling. I reached for it groggily, squinting at the brightness. The message was from Marcus, my colleague and closest friend at the office. My first instinct was to ignore it. Whatever it was could surely wait until morning. Then I saw his text attached to a video file. "You need to see this before Monday." Something about those words felt ominous, like a warning. I hesitated, thumb hovering over the play button, then pressed it. The video flickered to life, and I immediately recognized the location, our company's annual holiday party from a few weeks back. I remembered that night clearly. I'd left around 9, exhausted from a brutal week of deadlines and presentations, while Emma had insisted on staying longer to network and socialize with her coworkers. I hadn't thought much of it at the time. After all, we'd been married for over 10 years. I trusted her implicitly. That trust evaporated in the next 30 seconds. The video showed Emma standing near the bar, cocktail glass in hand, surrounded by a group that included my direct supervisor, several of my colleagues, and some people from her department. Everyone was laughing, drinking, clearly enjoying themselves. The atmosphere looked relaxed and festive. Then Emma spoke, and her words cut through me like broken glass. "Oh, don't worry about it," she said with a confident smile, gesturing casually with her drink. "By next month, I'll have myself a brand new husband anyway. That one's completely worthless, total idiot. He doesn't even have the slightest clue what's coming for him." The group erupted in laughter. Some people chuckled outright, others looked briefly uncomfortable before joining in, but not a single person defended me. Not one. My boss was laughing. My coworkers were laughing. People I'd worked alongside for years, people I respected professionally, were all part of this public humiliation. I sat there in the darkness, frozen, staring at my phone screen as my pulse hammered in my ears. What did she just say? I replayed it, then again and again. Each repetition drove the words deeper into my consciousness, burning themselves into my memory where I knew they'd stay forever. A new husband, worthless, total idiot. He doesn't even know what's coming. This was my wife, the woman I'd loved, supported, and built a life with over the course of a decade. The woman who'd promised to stand by me through everything. And here she was, openly mocking me, not in a moment of anger or drunken stupidity, but with casual confidence, like she'd been thinking about this for a long time. Like she had actual plans. The humiliation was absolutely suffocating. This wasn't some private argument or a slip of the tongue in frustration. This was public, deliberate. A room full of people I saw every single day had laughed at my expense, and I'd been walking around completely oblivious, the clueless fool everyone apparently knew me to be. But instead of the heartbreak I probably should have felt, instead of crumbling and questioning everything about my life, something else happened. Something cold and hard crystallized inside me. A deep, calculated rage that sharpened my thoughts rather than clouding them. She thought I was stupid. She thought I wouldn't see it coming. She thought she could humiliate me like this and just walk away unscathed, probably with half of everything I'd worked for. She had absolutely no idea who she just betrayed, or what I was capable of when pushed this far. I placed my phone down carefully on the nightstand and stared up at the darkened ceiling. My mind wasn't clouded with confusion or disbelief anymore. It was sharp, precise, methodical. I wasn't going to confront her right now. No, that would be too easy, too predictable, too emotional. I wasn't just going to react blindly to this betrayal. I was going to prepare. I was going to plan. And by the time Emma realized what was happening, it would already be far too late for her to do anything about it. The rest of that night passed in an eerie, surreal silence. I didn't sleep, couldn't sleep. I barely moved. My thoughts raced through every possibility, every potential outcome, every move I needed to make. I mentally dissected Emma's words over and over, searching for deeper meaning, for clues about what exactly she'd been planning. A new husband. Who was he? How long had this been going on? Did she already have everything arranged? The lawyer, the financial splits, the timeline? It didn't matter right now. I'd find out soon enough. I'd find out everything. At 7:30, I got out of bed. I showered, dressed, and carefully straightened my tie in front of the bathroom mirror, just like any other normal morning. Emma stirred in bed as I moved around the room, her eyes fluttering open, a lazy smile forming on her lips. "Morning," she murmured, stretching beneath the covers. I turned to face her, keeping my expression completely calm and controlled. "Morning." She yawned, reaching for her phone on her nightstand, totally oblivious to the fact that everything had changed. I studied her carefully. This woman, this stranger I'd somehow shared a home with for 10 years. She looked so comfortable, so secure in her deception. I wondered if she'd thought about me at all last night after making those comments. I wondered if she'd felt even the slightest twinge of guilt. Judging by how easily and naturally she greeted me now, I already knew the answer. "You're up early," she noted, slipping out of bed and padding toward the bathroom. I shrugged, buttoning my cuff. Busy day ahead. A complete lie. Today wasn't just another workday. Today was the beginning of something much bigger. The systematic dismantling of everything she thought she'd built. She kissed my cheek absently before disappearing into the bathroom. I stood there for a moment, watching the door close behind her. The same woman who'd called me worthless just hours ago. The same woman who'd laughed with my colleagues about how clueless I was. My jaw clenched involuntarily, but I forced myself to relax. She had no idea that by Monday, everything in her world would be different. The moment I stepped into the office that morning, I felt it immediately. The atmosphere had changed. The furtive glances, the hushed whispers that stopped when I walked past, the pity in people's eyes. Marcus clearly hadn't been the only one who knew about the video. That much was painfully obvious. They were all waiting for something. A reaction, a confrontation, an explosion. I gave them absolutely nothing. I greeted everyone as usual, sat down at my desk, typed out emails, attended my scheduled meetings. I acted like the same oblivious fool they'd all laughed at. Let them believe I still had no idea what had happened. Inside, though, I was already calculating my next moves with absolute precision. First priority, lawyers. I needed to secure my finances immediately, gather all relevant records, and protect my assets before Emma could make any moves. Second, evidence. I needed to find out if her betrayal went beyond mere words, if there was actually someone else in the picture. Third, control. I wasn't just going to leave this marriage. I was going to make absolutely certain that when I did, Emma would have nothing left to stand on. By the time I left the office that evening, I'd already set multiple plans into motion. Emma had no idea. She thought she had plenty of time. She thought she was in control. By the time she finally realized what was happening, it would be far too late to stop it. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was about justice. I arrived home that evening to the sound of laughter coming from our kitchen. Emma was on the phone, her voice light and cheerful in that particular way she always used when trying to impress someone. I lingered in the hallway for a moment, listening carefully. "Oh, stop it, you're too much," she said, followed by a pause and a girlish giggle. "Of course he has no idea. You worry way too much about nothing." I clenched my fists so hard my nails dug into my palms. So it wasn't just some joke at a party. There was definitely someone else. I'd spent the entire day laying groundwork, calling divorce attorneys, arranging for financial protections, starting to gather documents and records. I'd even reached out to a private investigator that Marcus had recommended. If Emma thought she was playing some kind of game, she was about to realize I was already 10 moves ahead of her. I walked into the kitchen casually, keeping my expression completely neutral. Emma turned around, startled for just a fraction of a second before covering it with a bright smile. She quickly ended her phone call. "Hey, you're home earlier than usual," she said. I walked to the refrigerator and grabbed a bottle of water. "Not really. Same time as always." She leaned against the counter, watching me with those calculating eyes. "You okay? You seem a little off today." The irony was almost laughable. I took a sip of water, meeting her gaze directly. "Just tired. Long day at the office." She nodded slowly, clearly trying to read me, trying to gauge whether I suspected anything. I gave her absolutely nothing to work with. "Well, guess what?" she said with an enthusiastic grin. "I made dinner for us tonight, your favorite." This was completely typical behavior for Emma. Whenever she'd done something she knew was wrong, she'd overcompensate with small, meaningless gestures. Making my favorite meal, acting extra affectionate, laughing a bit too hard at my jokes. It was her way of keeping me blind and distracted. "Smells really good," I said, playing along perfectly. "What's the special occasion?" She shrugged, turning back to the stove. "No occasion at all, just wanted to do something nice for my husband." I almost laughed out loud at the absurdity. She was still pretending, still playing her role. She genuinely thought I was completely in the dark, still trusting, still her convenient fool. I sat down at the dining table, watching carefully as she served the food, acting like the perfect devoted wife. If only she knew that every single move she made now was being studied, recorded, and cataloged for use against her. I picked up my fork, took a bite, and nodded appreciatively. Tastes great. Emma beamed with satisfaction. See, I still know how to take care of you properly. I swallowed the food, looking directly at her. Yeah, you really do. For now, anyway. After dinner, Emma announced she needed to take a long bath and headed upstairs. I waited until I heard the water running, then moved quickly. I walked over to her purse, carefully unzipping it and pulling out her phone. I considered trying to break into it, but I didn't need to. Not yet. Instead, I found exactly what I was looking for. A second phone hidden beneath her wallet. A burner phone. My stomach twisted uncomfortably, but my face remained perfectly calm and neutral. So this went even deeper than I'd thought. This was serious planning. I scrolled through the recent calls. A single number appeared multiple times every single day. No name attached, just digits. I committed the number to memory before carefully slipping the phone back into her bag, exactly where I'd found it. The evidence was piling up faster than I'd anticipated. Later that night, Emma lay beside me in bed, scrolling through her phone and humming softly to herself like she didn't have a single care in the world. I stared at the ceiling, listening, waiting. "So I've been thinking," she finally said. "We should really take a trip soon. Just the two of us. Get away from everything." I turned my head slightly, feigning mild surprise. "A trip?" She nodded enthusiastically. "Yeah, like a little romantic getaway, maybe to the beach or the mountains. We could really use some quality time alone together." Time alone? Was she trying to assuage her guilt? Or was this another calculated move in whatever game she was playing? I nodded slowly. "That actually sounds like a really good idea." She sighed with visible relief, rolling onto her side and resting her hand on my chest. "I know we've both been so busy with work lately. I just want us to reconnect properly, you know?" Complete lies, all of it. I studied her face carefully. Her eyes looked warm and genuine, completely convincing. Emma had always been an exceptionally good liar, but I was finally done being deceived. "That sounds really nice," I murmured, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear in what probably looked like an affectionate gesture. She smiled contentedly, closing her eyes. Within minutes, her breathing had evened out into the steady rhythm of sleep. But I wasn't sleeping. Because while Emma dreamed about whatever future she thought she was carefully building, I was planning exactly how to destroy every single piece of it. The next morning, I woke up well before Emma. I watched her for a moment. Her face looked so serene and peaceful in sleep, like she genuinely didn't have any worries at all. I resisted the urge to shake my head in disbelief. How had I missed this side of her for so long? How had I been so completely blind? I got up carefully without waking her and went downstairs. While the coffee machine hummed to life, I grabbed my phone and texted Marcus. "Need a favor. Call me when you're free." I didn't have to wait long. My phone buzzed a few minutes later with his call. "What's going on?" Marcus asked, his voice cautious. "That number that's been calling Emma's burner phone? I need to know who it belongs to." Marcus sighed heavily. "Are you absolutely sure you want to go down this road?" "Just get me a name," I said, my tone sharper than I'd intended. A pause. "All right, give me about an hour." I hung up and took my coffee into my home office, closing the door behind me. Then I opened my laptop and started methodically going through all our bank records. I wasn't just looking for obvious signs of cheating. This went much deeper than that. If Emma was seriously planning to leave me, I needed to know exactly how far she'd already gone. Had she been secretly moving money around? Opening hidden accounts? Maybe even paying for a new apartment with her mystery man? I logged into our shared account first. Everything looked completely normal. No suspicious withdrawals, no unusual transfers. But when I checked Emma's personal account, I found something that made my stomach clench. A $5,000 transfer to a name I didn't recognize. I copied the name and ran it through a quick search. It didn't take long to find out who it belonged to. A divorce attorney, a well-known, expensive divorce attorney. I leaned back in my chair, my heart pounding. So it was all true. She wasn't just cheating. She was already actively preparing to leave me. And yet she was still here, still playing the role of the loving wife, still kissing me goodnight, still pretending like everything was perfectly fine. Why? I stared at the screen. my mind racing through possibilities. She hadn't filed papers yet. If she had, I would have been served by now. That meant she was waiting for something. But what? Was she stalling until she'd secured more money? Until she'd figured out how to leave without facing any consequences? Or was she waiting for him, whoever he was? My phone buzzed. Marcus. Tell me you have something, I answered immediately. He exhaled heavily. The number belongs to a guy named Derek Matthews. The name meant absolutely nothing to me. Who is he? That's the interesting part, Marcus said. He's not some random guy. He works in Emma's department. I felt something snap inside me. Her office? Yeah, IT department specifically. He's been there a couple of years. From what I could find, he's single, no kids. And here's another thing. He used to be engaged. Broke it off about 6 months ago. 6 months? That was right around when Emma had started coming home later than usual. Started dressing up more carefully for work. Started keeping her phone closer, guarding it like it contained state secrets. Everything suddenly made perfect, horrible sense. You need anything else? Marcus asked carefully. No, I said, my voice like steel. That's enough. Derek Matthews, a man from her office, someone she saw every single day. Someone who'd been planning something with her behind my back for months. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through our old text messages. Months ago, I'd asked Emma about her increasingly long hours at work. She'd laughed it off easily. Just meetings and projects, babe. You worry way too much. All lies. I checked her digital calendar. Multiple meetings scheduled late into the evening. Work events she'd specifically told me not to bother attending because they'd be boring. It had been right in front of me the entire time. The next morning, I heard Emma coming down the stairs. I took a deep breath, carefully erasing every trace of anger from my face. I had to continue playing this carefully. Very carefully. Morning, babe, she greeted cheerfully, stretching as she entered the kitchen. Morning, I replied, sipping my coffee like absolutely nothing had changed. She walked up behind me and pressed a kiss to my cheek. You're up especially early today. Busy day ahead, I said smoothly. Got a lot to handle at the office. She smiled. Same here, actually. I wondered if she'd already texted Derek this morning, if she'd sent him a good morning message before even coming downstairs to see her husband. What time do you think you'll be home tonight? She asked casually, pouring herself coffee. Not really sure, I lied easily. Might end up working pretty late. Her eyes flickered slightly, just a barely perceptible flash of something. Hesitation, maybe, but she wasn't worried about me working late. She was wondering if that meant she'd have freedom to be with him. I studied her as she sipped her coffee and scrolled through her phone. She looked so calm, so absolutely certain that she had everything under control. She thought I was still completely in the dark. She thought I hadn't seen the video, hadn't checked the accounts, hadn't found Derek Matthews. I was going to let her keep thinking that for just a little while longer, because when the truth finally hit her, when she realized I'd known everything all along, it wasn't going to be just an argument. It would be the complete destruction of her entire plan. I left the house and drove straight to the office of David Hunt, a well-known divorce attorney with a reputation for absolutely destroying the opposition. I'd done extensive research. Emma had spoken to a lawyer, but she hadn't actually filed yet, which meant I still had time to turn the tables completely. David leaned forward across his sleek desk, his sharp eyes assessing me. Tell me exactly what you want, and I'll tell you if it's realistically possible. I met his gaze directly. I want her to walk away with absolutely nothing. He raised an eyebrow. That depends entirely on several factors. Do you have a prenuptial agreement? I shook my head. No prenup, but I have something better. I reached into my pocket and placed a USB drive on his desk. This contains video of my wife publicly humiliating me at a company party. I also have detailed records of her financial transactions, including a $5,000 payment to a divorce attorney she never told me about. And I recently discovered she's having an affair with one of her coworkers. David picked up the USB, weighing it thoughtfully in his hand. You did your homework very thoroughly, he murmured with a hint of professional approval. I nodded. I want a strategy that leaves her with nothing. No alimony, no assets, no way to claim anything from me whatsoever. David actually smirked. You're exactly my kind of client. He leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers thoughtfully. We'll build our entire case around infidelity and financial deception. If she's been secretly moving money while planning to leave, we can prove she was acting in bad faith the entire time. That won't look good in any court. And the affair, I asked. If we can definitively confirm it with solid evidence, it dramatically strengthens your position. Judges really don't look kindly on spouses who betray their marriage while secretly planning their escape and trying to maximize their financial take. I clenched my jaw. I need absolute proof, more than just suspicious texts or speculation. I need something completely undeniable. David nodded approvingly. Then you need a private investigator working on this immediately. I'd already anticipated that. I have one on standby. He's already tracking her movements as we speak. David gave me an impressed nod. Excellent. If we can get clear photographic evidence of her meeting this Derek Matthews in obviously compromising situations, we'll have serious leverage. Combined with the financial records and that video, we can make absolutely certain she doesn't get a single cent from you. That's exactly what I want. David smiled. Then let's get to work. As I left the law office, I checked my phone. A message from Ethan, my private investigator. Target arrived at work on schedule. No unusual activity so far. We'll update. I smirked slightly. Emma had absolutely no idea she was being watched, cataloged, and documented. I sent a quick reply. Let me know immediately if she leaves during lunch hours. Then I got into my car, but I wasn't heading to my office yet. I had one more crucial stop to make. Derek Matthews' office building wasn't far from mine. I'd already researched everything I could find about him. His work schedule, his apartment address, his gym routine, every potentially relevant detail. But today, I wasn't just following him or gathering information. Today, I was going to confront him directly. I walked into the building and straight up to the front desk. The receptionist, a polished woman in her 30s, looked up professionally. Can I help you? I need to see Derek Matthews, I said, my voice completely calm and controlled. Do you have an appointment scheduled? No, but you can tell him it concerns Emma. Her eyes flickered with unmistakable curiosity, but she picked up the phone and dialed his extension. Mr. Matthews, there's someone here in the lobby asking for you. He says it's about Emma. A pause as she listened. Oh, okay, I'll send him up. She hung up and gestured toward the elevators. He'll meet you on the 3rd floor. I waited, standing perfectly still. About a minute later, Derek appeared. He was exactly what I'd expected from the research. Early 30s, reasonably fit, dressed in business casual, the kind of guy who probably thought he was pretty slick and clever. He approached cautiously. Can I help you with something? I took a deliberate step closer. You don't know who I am, do you? He frowned, looking genuinely confused. Should I? I smiled coldly. I'm Emma's husband. His face immediately drained of all color. I saw it clearly. The slight nervous twitch in his jaw, the way his shoulders tensed involuntarily. He knew exactly why I was here. I tilted my head slightly. Relax, I'm not here to make a scene or cause problems. I just have one simple question for you. I paused deliberately. How long has this been going on? He swallowed hard. I don't know what you're talking about. I actually laughed. Don't insult my intelligence, Derek. Exactly how long have you been sleeping with my wife? His eyes darted around nervously, as if desperately looking for an escape route. Look, man, I think you've got the wrong... Don't lie to me, I interrupted, my voice quiet but carrying unmistakable weight. Derek exhaled heavily, rubbing the back of his neck anxiously. It's really not what you think at all. It's exactly what I think, I said flatly. He looked at me, then quickly away, and I could see he was trapped. I already knew the answer anyway. Let me give you fair warning, Derek, I continued, my voice deadly calm. Stay completely away from my wife from this point forward. His eyes snapped back to mine with something like defiance. You think she's actually leaving me for you? I asked, smirking. That's genuinely cute. You're just a convenient pawn in her game, Derek. You were never going to win anything here. He clenched his jaw defensively. She lied to you, I said simply. And if you seriously think she won't do exactly the same thing to you eventually, you're even more naive than I thought. I let that sink in for a moment before stepping back. You have one chance to walk away from this situation before it gets extremely ugly. I'd strongly suggest you take it. Then I turned and walked out, leaving him standing there. Derek didn't follow or try to stop me. He just realized he wasn't the one in control anymore. Neither was Emma. That evening, Emma came home with the same practiced, perfect smile she'd been using for months. Hey, babe, she called out, setting her purse on the kitchen counter. Hey, I responded casually. She walked over and kissed my cheek, her lips soft and familiar. But now I knew exactly what those lips had been doing just hours earlier. I forced myself to stay still, to not let any disgust show on my face. How was your day? She asked, leaning comfortably against the counter. Busy, Meetings, deadlines, the usual grind. I took a sip of water. How about yours? A flicker of something crossed her face. Hesitation, maybe guilt. Then she smiled, smoothing down her blouse. Same, honestly. Work was absolutely exhausting today. Just back-to-back meetings. You know how it gets? I nodded, carefully hiding my knowing smirk behind my glass. She'd just lied directly to my face. I had photographic evidence that she'd spent part of her afternoon in Derek Matthews' car in a parking garage, and she didn't even flinch when lying about it. This wasn't guilt or remorse. This was pure absolute confidence. She genuinely believed I was too trusting, too oblivious to ever question her, and that meant I held all the real power here. You okay? She asked suddenly, tilting her head with apparent concern. You seem a little distracted tonight. I met her gaze, holding it steadily. Just thinking about some things. About what specifically? I smiled slightly. About how much everything has changed recently. She went completely still for half a second, then forced a light laugh. That sounds pretty deep and philosophical. Everything's okay though, right? Of course, I said smoothly. She studied my face carefully, searching for signs of suspicion or knowledge. I gave her absolutely nothing. After a moment, she seemed satisfied and headed upstairs to change. I watched her go, my jaw tightening involuntarily. She was far too comfortable in this elaborate lie. That needed to change very soon. That night, as Emma curled up beside me in bed scrolling through her phone, I finally made my first real deliberate move. I actually ran into an old acquaintance today, I said casually, as if it meant nothing. She glanced up from her screen. Oh yeah? Who was that? Not really a friend, actually. More like someone I just knew of tangentially. Derek Matthews. Her fingers froze completely over her phone screen. It was so fast, such a small reaction that most people would never have noticed it. But I did. I kept my expression perfectly neutral, as if the name meant absolutely nothing significant to me. She laughed lightly, but it sounded slightly forced. Derek, from my office building? Yeah, that's the one. He seemed pretty surprised to run into me randomly. Emma blinked, and for the first time in months, I saw something new and unfamiliar in her eyes. Genuine uncertainty. What did you guys talk about? She asked, her voice carefully controlled. I shrugged casually. Not much, really. He seemed nervous, though, pretty awkward guy. She forced another laugh. Oh, Derek's always been like that. Total introvert, probably just weirded out by running into you unexpectedly. I smiled, pretending to consider that explanation. Maybe you're right. She studied me intently, looking for any signs that I knew more than I was letting on. I let her search as long as she wanted. Then I leaned in and gently kissed her forehead. You know, I murmured, brushing her hair back affectionately. I've been thinking we really should go on that trip you mentioned. Just the two of us, getting away from everything. Her breath caught noticeably. She clearly hadn't expected that response. She'd probably expected me to be distant, suspicious, cold, not warm, and affectionate. I saw the internal war playing out behind her eyes. Was I really still completely clueless, or was something wrong here? She hesitated for just half a second too long before smiling. That sounds absolutely amazing. We definitely need a proper break from everything. Yeah, I agreed warmly. We really do. She kissed me softly, and for the first time I could feel that she was the one who seemed forced and uncertain. Doubt was finally creeping in. She didn't know how much I actually knew. And that uncertainty was going to slowly eat her alive from the inside. At 2:30 in the morning, Emma was deeply asleep. I wasn't. I slipped quietly out of bed, grabbed my phone, and walked to my office, carefully locking the door behind me. Then I opened the email from Ethan, my investigator. The photographs loaded slowly. Emma sitting in Derek Matthews' car, smiling broadly, laughing, holding his hand across the center console. My stomach twisted uncomfortably, but I refused to let the emotion consume me or cloud my judgment. Instead, I immediately forwarded everything to David Hunt, my attorney. The divorce papers would be ready very soon. Emma had absolutely no idea, but our marriage was effectively already over. She thought she still had control over the situation. She thought I was still playing the role of the oblivious fool. But when those papers finally arrived, she'd realized that I'd been playing her all along. A few days later, I took Emma to an upscale restaurant downtown. She'd dressed beautifully for the occasion, an elegant black dress, the diamond earrings I'd bought her for our anniversary, full makeup. She looked radiant and confident, like a woman who believed she had everything perfectly under control. We ordered drinks and made pleasant small talk. Emma was relaxed, sipping her wine, laughing easily. She genuinely thought she'd won. Then I pulled out my phone. Taped to the back was a small USB drive. I slid it across the white tablecloth toward her. Her smile immediately faltered. "What's this?" "Go ahead," I said calmly. "Take a look at what's on it." She hesitated, glancing around the restaurant like this might be some kind of joke. Then slowly, reluctantly, she picked it up. "Michael, what exactly is this?" she asked, her voice becoming unsteady. I leaned back comfortably in my chair, watching her closely. "It's proof," I said, keeping my voice perfectly calm. "Proof of everything you've been doing. The affair with Derek, the plans to leave me, every single lie you've told over the past 6 months." Her face drained of all color. "Michael, don't lie to me again," I cut in firmly. "I have video evidence, Emma. Clear footage of you sitting in Derek's car, talking explicitly about how stupid I am, how I don't suspect anything, how you're just waiting for the right time to file." Her hand trembled visibly around the USB drive. "You really thought you could play me like this, didn't you?" I continued, my voice cold and steady. "That I'd never figure it out. That you could take everything and leave me completely blindsided while you ran off with your IT boyfriend?" Her lips parted, but no words came out. For the first time, Emma had absolutely nothing to say. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a thick manila envelope. "These are your divorce papers," I said, sliding them next to her wine glass. "Congratulations, Emma. You just lost everything you were planning to take." Her breath hitched audibly, her fingers tightening around the edge of the tablecloth. She stared at the envelope like it might explode. "The house is already solely in my name," I continued matter-of-factly. "Your personal accounts have been frozen. That expensive lawyer you hired? Turns out he works for me now. Took a much better offer. And Derek? Well, let's just say he's not quite as committed as you thought he was." She finally looked up at me, her eyes wide with shock and the dawning horror of complete realization. "Enjoy your fresh start, Emma," I said, standing up from the table. "I really hope it was worth destroying everything we built." Then I walked out of that restaurant and didn't look back. For the first time in months, I finally felt completely free.